we're going to use our solar filter and the telescope, and we're going to observe the sun. So before we do that, there are 3 important rules to remember about using the telescope to observe the sun, because you don't want to be cooking your eyeballs, and you don't want to be melting parts of your telescope because you did it wrong, because you let the sun's heat be focused by the telescope. So, rule number 1, do not point the telescope toward the sun unless it has a solar filter on it. Rule number 2, do not point the telescope toward the sun unless it has the solar filter on it. And rule number 3, do not point the telescope toward the sun unless it has the solar filter on it. As long as you follow those 3 rules, you'll be fine. You don't follow those 3 rules, and you're going to damage your telescope, possibly even damage your vision. So, note, the telescope is not pointed toward the sun. The sun is there. Ah, bright. Shadow in my face with my hand. The sun is that way. Telescope is pointing away from the sun, and I am going to point it more away from the sun. Take the cap off, get out my solar filter, put the solar filter on the telescope now, and now the solar filter is on the telescope, so I can point the telescope in the direction of the sun. Another good rule is don't look at the sun, but not as important as the 3 rules about don't point the telescope at the sun without the solar filter on it. In general, you don't want to be looking up at the sun under any circumstances. In order to point the telescope at the sun without looking at the sun, you use the shadow on the ground. When the telescope is aimed at the sun, the shadow will be very small, and you'll probably be able to see the light passing through the finder down on the ground, making this little blue spot. Okay, so there is the shadow and the blue. If I come here, see, I have the shadow on my hand. If I come over here, the shadow of the finder is right there on my hand. If I move the telescope away, then it doesn't make such a nice clean blue mark like that. Best is when the finder makes a very small clean shadow and the shadow on the ground is nice and round. When I'm at this point, the telescope is pointed in the general direction of the sun. Now I have to find the sun. To find the sun, I'm going to do something unusual. I'm going to take the eyepiece out and set it aside. When I look down into the telescope, it's probably going to look black. And that's because I'm not really on the sun, exactly on target. The best I can do with my shadow is to get sort of on target. I will now have to move the thing around a little bit until I see some light from the sun. There, whoops.